I never imagined I'd spend my late 40s rebuilding a life I'd already built once. But when betrayal comes from the person you trusted most, the one who smiled with you, planned with you, and called you partner, the pain doesn't just cut deep. It settles in your bones. My name is Evelyn Carter, and for 22 years, I thought I had it all. A thriving interior design business, a loving husband named Mark, and a best friend, Vanessa, who'd been with me since college. We started from nothing, tiny apartments, late-night takeout dinners, dreams bigger than our wallets. I was the dreamer, and Mark was the planner. Vanessa was my constant cheerleader. We built Carter and Company. Designs from the ground up, my vision, Mark's management, and Vanessa's marketing expertise. It was our baby before our actual baby came along. Our daughter, Sophie, who grew up surrounded by color palettes, fabric swatches, and the smell of fresh paint. For years, everything looked perfect. Family dinners, weekend client meetings, laughter echoing through our home. People called us the Golden Trio. I believed that too, until one ordinary Thursday. My life split into before and after. It started with a mistake, an email meant for someone else. I was finalizing a major design pitch for a corporate client when an attachment from Vanessa came through. It was a contract renewal for a new partnership, but my name wasn't on it. Just Carter and Company. No, Evelyn Carter. At first, I thought it was a clerical error. I even chuckled, shaking my head. "Vanessa, you forgot me again," I muttered as I typed back. Her reply was short. Too short. "We'll discuss later. Don't worry about it." The next few weeks, things started feeling off. Mark was distracted, always out with investors. Vanessa stopped inviting me to meetings I used to lead. When I asked about decisions, they'd say, "It's just business, Ev. We're trying something new." But I wasn't stupid. I built that company from sweat, sleepless nights, and instinct. I could smell when something was wrong. And something was very wrong. It wasn't until Sophie came home one night, eyes wide and voice trembling, that the truth started to surface. "Mom, why did Aunt Vanessa say the company's hers now?" My stomach dropped. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" She said Dad's helping her rebrand. That your name doesn't fit the new image. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The walls felt like they were closing in. The same walls I designed myself. I drove to the office that night. It was 9:30 p.m., lights still on. Through the glass, I saw Vanessa and Mark sitting side by side, going through my files, laughing, touching. When Mark looked up and saw me, his face froze. Vanessa didn't. She just smiled, that smug, practice smile I'd seen her use to win over clients. "Evelyn, you should have called." "I didn't know I needed an appointment to visit my own office," I said quietly. Mark stood, voice stammering. "Ev, it's not what it looks like." "Oh, I think it's exactly what it looks like." I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just looked at them, the two people who'd shared every piece of my life, and realized they'd been planning this for months. Vanessa's words still echo in my mind. "You built something great, Ev, but sometimes growth means letting go." She called stealing my company growth. The next few weeks were a blur of legal documents and emotional wreckage. They'd quietly removed me from partnership under the guise of executive restructuring. Mark had transferred half our assets to Vanessa's name, claiming it was for tax purposes. When my lawyer showed me the paperwork, I realized they'd been planning this for over a year. Every document I'd signed out of trust, every dotted line, all part of their setup. And the worst part? Mark moved out. Not just out of the house, but into Vanessa's apartment. I didn't eat for days. I'd walk into rooms and forget why I was there. The air in the house felt heavy, like betrayal had soaked into the walls. Sophie tried to comfort me, but she was only 19. I didn't want her to see her mother crumble. So I smiled through tears and told her everything was fine. But inside, I was already plotting. People think revenge means rage. It doesn't. Revenge, when it's born from heartbreak, is quiet. It's methodical. It's patient. I wasn't going to burn down what they stole. I was going to reclaim it. I started small. I reached out to old clients, the ones who'd worked with me, not the brand. I told them I was starting fresh, under a new name, Evelyn Grace Designs. Simple.
Like, subscribe, and share with your friends who related to it. Comment below for next story.
Personal. Mine. Within weeks, calls began to come in. Not many, but enough. Enough to feel like oxygen again. Meanwhile, Carter and Company was everywhere, rebranded, flashy, cold. Vanessa and Mark smiled from magazine covers like the perfect power couple. But I knew better. I knew Mark didn't have the design instinct, and Vanessa didn't have the patience. The foundation they built on betrayal would crack. It was only a matter of time. Still, I couldn't stop the ache. Every Christmas photo they posted, every event they attended together was like a knife to the heart. But I stayed quiet. I built. Slowly. Carefully. 6 months later, the universe gave me an opening, disguised as a phone call. It was Jennifer Morales, a corporate client who'd worked with us years ago. "Evelyn, I heard you're on your own now. We've had some disappointing results with the new Carter team." She wanted me to handle her next big project, a luxury hotel renovation worth nearly $500,000. I agreed, calmly, but inside something sparked. This wasn't just a project. It was the project that would shift everything. I poured myself into it. Late nights, early mornings. Sophie helped me with graphics, and we worked out of the kitchen, blueprint papers stacked beside dinner plates. And when the hotel launched, it was a masterpiece. Clean, emotional, timeless, the kind of design people remembered. Within weeks, Evelyn Grace Designs was trending online. Articles praised my comeback story. Investors called. Clients switched allegiance. And for the first time in a long time, I laughed. Not bitterly, but freely. Because while I was rising quietly, Vanessa and Mark's empire was collapsing. I didn't even have to lift a finger. Clients complained about missed deadlines. Vanessa's ego clashed with staff. And Mark had started drinking again. Word spread fast in our small industry. Carter and Company became the cautionary tale. But I wasn't done. When they reached out, yes, they did, I answered. Calmly. Mark called first. "Ev, maybe we should meet. There's a lot to talk about." "There's nothing left to talk about," I said softly. "You made your choice." Then Vanessa sent me an email. "Business has ups and downs. Maybe we could collaborate again. It'll show goodwill." I smiled when I read that line. Goodwill. The same word she used when she stole everything I had. So, I replied with a single sentence. "Goodwill was the first thing you sold, Vanessa." That night, I sat by the window, looking at the city lights. Sophie came and sat beside me. "Mom," she said, "you didn't need to destroy them." I looked at her and smiled. "I didn't, sweetheart. They destroyed themselves. I just reminded them what it feels like to lose." And in that silence, I realized something profound. The best revenge isn't payback. It's rebuilding so high they can't reach you anymore. Vanessa took everything I built. But she forgot one thing. I was the foundation. And without the foundation, everything collapses. It's strange how silence can become your loudest revenge. I didn't need headlines, lawsuits, or revenge posts. All I did was keep my head down and let success make the noise they couldn't ignore. Within a year, Evelyn Grace Designs wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. My small studio expanded into a glass front office downtown, filled with natural light and plants Sophie insisted on buying. She said they made the place breathe again. I had 5 employees, all women who'd been overlooked or underpaid by their previous firms. I wanted to build a company on trust, not ambition soaked in betrayal. Meanwhile, Carter and Company was sinking faster than anyone could have predicted. Clients I once served with love were leaving angry reviews, claiming missed deadlines and poor execution. Investors pulled out. And the design community, the one that once envied our teamwork, whispered about how the magic was gone. They were right, because I was the magic. One evening, while finalizing plans for a charity design gala, I got a text from an unknown number. "It's Mark. I know I don't deserve your time, but please, I need to talk." I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "There's nothing to talk about." He sent another one. "It's about the company. About Vanessa. Please, Evelyn." Against my better judgment, curiosity got the best of me. I told him to meet at a quiet cafe, neutral ground. When he walked in, I barely recognized him. The confident man I married was gone. In his place was someone older, smaller, broken. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes hollow. "Ev," he said softly, sitting across from me. "You look incredible." I ignored the compliment. "What do you want, Mark?" He rubbed his temples. "Vanessa's gone. She emptied our accounts and disappeared. Took everything. I can't even pay the staff." I leaned back, letting his words sink in. "She took everything you built, huh?" He looked up, realizing the irony too late. "Evelyn, I made a mistake. I thought she cared. I thought she wanted to grow the company. But she just wanted control." My hands trembled slightly, but my voice didn't. "You didn't just make a mistake, Mark. You destroyed someone who loved you for your comfort. And now, you're shocked someone did the same to you." He looked like a man crushed under the weight of his own choices. "Please," he whispered, "just help me fix it. I'll give you back everything. I'll sign whatever you want." I shook my head. "Mark, the woman you betrayed doesn't exist anymore. The one sitting in front of you doesn't need anything from you." He looked like he wanted to reach out, but I stood up. "Goodbye, Mark. I hope one day you understand the value of something before you lose it." As I walked out, a strange calm filled me. For years, I'd dreamed of this moment, of watching him break, of seeing regret in his eyes. But now that it was here, I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt done. 3 months later, a headline made its rounds in the local business paper, Carter and Company. Declares bankruptcy amid fraud allegations. Apparently, Vanessa had been falsifying reports and pocketing client money. She'd vanished with nearly $500,000. Authorities were looking for her, but I knew they wouldn't find her easily. She was too calculating, too good at wearing masks. I could have gone to the press. I could have said, "I told you so." But I didn't. I let silence tell my story, because by then, I was too busy living a new chapter. It was during that same period that Daniel Reeves entered my life, a client turned friend who eventually became more. He was an architect, quiet but observant. We worked together on a nonprofit housing project for single mothers. One night, after a long design session, he looked up from the blueprints and said softly, "You know what I admire about you, Evelyn? You create spaces people can heal in." I smiled. "That's the point, isn't it? To rebuild what's broken." He nodded. "I think you've done that for yourself, too." It was the first time someone had said that out loud, and the first time I believed it. That winter, I got an invitation to an annual industry gala. Ironically, Carter and Company had sponsored it for years, but this time, they weren't even mentioned. My company, Evelyn Grace Designs, was among the featured firms. As I walked into the grand ballroom, gold lights shimmering, soft jazz playing, I caught people whispering my name. Not with pity this time, with admiration. "Is that her? She's the one who made that hotel design. She came back from that scandal. Incredible." For a moment, I thought of Vanessa and Mark, of the way they once strutted through rooms like this, hand in hand, laughing at my sentimental approach to business. And I realized they had stolen my company, my name, and my trust, but they never took my heart. That was something they could never counterfeit. As the night went on, I found myself staring out at the city skyline, glass in hand. Daniel walked up beside me. "Deep in thought?" he asked. I smiled faintly, just thinking how strange life is. I lost everything once and somehow I gained something better. He looked at me. "You didn't just gain it. You built it again, stronger this time." I nodded slowly. Maybe that's what losing teaches you, to build differently. The next morning, I got a letter. No name on the envelope, just elegant handwriting for Evelyn. Inside was a short note. "You win. I hope you're happy. V." No apology, no explanation, just surrender. I folded the note, placed it in my desk drawer, and never mentioned it again. Because yes, I was happy, not because I'd won over her, but because I'd finally won myself back. Months later, Sophie came home from university for summer break. She walked into my studio, now bustling with new projects and laughter, and hugged me tightly. "Mom," she said, "you did it." I smiled. "No, we did it. You stood by me when everyone else left." She looked around at the beautiful chaos. sketches pinned on boards, sunlight hitting glass walls, and said something I'll never forget. Maybe God let them take everything so you could remember what you're really made of. And for the first time in years, I felt peace. True, quiet peace. Vanessa took everything I built, my company, my husband, my trust. But in doing so, she freed me from everything that was holding me back. Because when you lose everything, you finally learn how to rebuild without fear. And when I rebuilt, I made sure no one could ever take it again. Only give her poetic justice face to face. 2.5 years had passed. Long enough for wounds to fade into scars. Long enough for me to stop flinching every time someone said her name. Vanessa. Even her name once felt like honey. Smooth, sweet, comforting. Now it tasted like smoke. My business had grown beyond my wildest dreams. We were designing corporate headquarters, hotels, and even a children's hospital wing. People loved the sincerity behind our work, the feeling that every space had a soul. One afternoon, while reviewing final renderings for an architecture award nomination, my assistant Claire rushed in, her phone clutched tightly. "Evelyn, you're not going to believe this." She turned her screen toward me. There it was, a glossy online article titled, "Vanessa Holt returns to design scene, launches new studio after hiatus." My stomach twisted. The photo showed her standing in front of a marble desk, arms crossed, chin lifted like nothing had happened. Her hair was shorter, darker, styled like she was reinventing herself. The article praised her resilience after setbacks, her visionary style, and her dedication to sustainability. I wanted to laugh. Sustainability? The woman couldn't even sustain loyalty. But as I scrolled through the comments, something caught my eye. Didn't she get caught embezzling from Carter and Company? Wasn't that the firm that tanked after her partnership scandal? No way I'd hire her. Bad reputation. The internet had remembered. And unlike her lies, the truth doesn't vanish easily. Still, I knew Vanessa. She'd slither her way into any crack of opportunity. She'd charm investors, seduce clients, and paint over history like it was watercolor. I didn't plan on doing anything. Not yet. But fate had other plans. A few weeks later, I got an invitation to the American Interior Design Awards, the biggest event in our field. My studio, Evelyn Grace Designs, was nominated for Firm of the Year. I smiled when I saw the nominees list. Vanessa's new company was there too. The irony was delicious. That night, I stood in front of my mirror, adjusting my silver gown, brushing a loose strand of hair from my face. Sophie, now 21, stood in the doorway. "You look stunning, Mom," she said. "Ready to see her again?" I took a deep breath. I've waited 3 years for this. I'm ready. The ballroom shimmered under golden chandeliers. Cameras flashed, people hugged, and laughter echoed. The smell of champagne and expensive perfume filled the air. And then I saw her, Vanessa Holt, walking in like a ghost wearing confidence. Her black dress hugged her like armor, but her eyes gave her away. They darted too quickly, searching the crowd, calculating. Our gazes met. A flicker of surprise crossed her face. Then, that same arrogant smirk I remembered so well. She walked straight toward me. "Evelyn Grace," she said, voice dripping with forced sweetness. "I was wondering if you'd be here." "Vanessa." I smiled politely. "You look different. Reinvention suits me." "I can see that," I said softly. "Though some things can't be redesigned." Her smile faltered for a split second before she recovered. "I heard your studio's doing well." "Congratulations." "Thank you," I replied. "And I heard you're back in business?" She raised a brow. "Of course. You can't keep real talent down forever." I tilted my head. "No, but fraud charges tend to help." Her face froze. The people nearby pretended not to hear, but I saw them listening. She forced a laugh. "Always so dramatic, Evelyn. Still holding on to old grudges." I leaned closer, my tone calm and precise. "No grudges, Vanessa. Just memories. You should try keeping a few. They teach you things." Her expression flickered, just for a second, a crack in her perfect facade. Then the announcer's voice boomed across the room, calling everyone to take their seats. The ceremony began, names were called, and applause filled the air. awards for innovation, sustainability, and rising talent. Then came the biggest category of the night, Firm of the Year. The announcer read out the finalists, including Evelyn Grace Designs and Vanessa Holt Studio. I could feel her tense beside me. She was pretending to be unbothered, but her knuckles turned white on her champagne glass. And the award for Firm of the Year goes to the pause stretched long enough to make the air buzz. Evelyn Grace Designs. Applause erupted. Cameras flashed. Vanessa's face drained of color as I rose from my seat, my heart pounding in calm victory. When I took the stage, the host handed me the Crystal Award. It gleamed under the spotlight. Heavy, beautiful, earned. I leaned into the microphone, smiling gently. 3 years ago, I began. I lost everything I had built. My business, my trust, my sense of purpose. I thought that was the end of my story. The room went silent. But what I learned is that losing everything can be a gift because it forces you to find out who you really are when no one's watching. I glanced toward Vanessa. Her eyes met mine, glassy, unblinking. I rebuilt, I continued softly, not to prove anyone wrong, but to remind myself what right looks like. And this, I lifted the award, isn't revenge. It's redemption. The crowd rose in applause. Cameras captured my smile, my tears, my grace. And Vanessa? She sat still, jaw tight, applause ringing around her like the sound of every lie collapsing. Later that night, I found her outside on the terrace, smoking, her expensive perfume failing to mask the bitterness in the air. She didn't look at me when she spoke. Enjoy it while it lasts, Evelyn. Fame fades. I smiled softly. So does deceit. She turned, eyes sharp. You think you're better than me now? No, I said. I just became who I was always meant to be. You taught me that. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. For the first time, she had nothing left to steal. Not my words, not my work, not my confidence. I started to walk away, then paused. Oh, and Vanessa? She looked up, tired, defensive. You once said you took everything I built, I said. Turns out, you only took what was temporary. I kept what mattered. And I walked back inside where my daughter, my team, my new family were waiting, under lights that felt like home. That night, when I placed the award on my shelf, I whispered to the empty room, this isn't for revenge. It's for closure. Because the best revenge isn't destruction. It's rebuilding so beautifully that your enemies have no choice but to watch. 6 months passed after that night at the award ceremony, but I still remembered every second of it, the golden lights, the applause, Vanessa's frozen smile. Not because I wanted to hold on to it like a trophy of revenge, but because it finally closed a chapter one thought would haunt me forever. Since then, Evelyn Grace Designs had soared. New clients, international collaborations, press features, everything I had once dreamed of and more. But in success, there was also quiet. And in that quiet, I found something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I started my mornings with coffee and silence, reading by the window Sophie once used to paint by. She was finishing her graduate studies now, in business, like her father once wanted. But she told me she was doing it for herself this time. One evening, as we sat together over dinner, she said, Mom, you ever wonder if people like her ever regret it? Who? I asked though I knew. Vanessa. She looked up, eyes thoughtful. People who destroy others for their own gain. Do they ever really feel sorry? I sighed, tracing my fingers over the rim of my glass. Maybe not in the way we expect, but life has a way of humbling everyone eventually. She nodded slowly. You'd think karma would move faster sometimes. I smiled. Karma doesn't rush, sweetheart. It just never forgets. 3 weeks later, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something, maybe intuition, made me answer. Hello. There was a pause, then a voice I hadn't heard in 3 years. Evelyn, it's Vanessa. For a second, I thought it was a prank. Her voice was hoarse, unsteady, almost broken. I know I have no right to call, she said quietly, but I didn't know who else to talk to. I didn't say anything. My heartbeat was steady, not angry, just curious. I lost everything, she continued. The investors pulled out. The clients vanished. The bank froze my accounts. Someone leaked the old files. The ones that proved what I did back then. My company's finished. Her voice cracked. They're investigating me again. I might lose my license for good. I closed my eyes, not in triumph, not in pity, but in realization. This was the fall she had been running from all her life. "I'm sorry, Evelyn," she whispered. "I mean it this time. I thought I could fix it. I thought I could be better. But every time I tried to climb out, I used someone else as a step. And now there's no one left to step on." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The sound of her breathing trembled through the phone, mixed with something deeper, not fear, not guilt, but emptiness. "I can't fix what I did to you," she said finally. "But I just wanted you to know I understand now. Losing everything. It's the only way I could finally see what I'd taken from you." I took a breath. The woman on the other end was no longer my rival, no longer the thief of my dreams. She was just another broken person trying to face her own reflection. "Vanessa," I said softly, "you always thought taking things made you powerful. But power isn't in possession. It's in peace. You'll only find that when you stop taking and start owning your choices." There was silence, then a small, shaky thank you. I hung up, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel revenge. I just felt done. The following month, a news article appeared in the industry paper. Vanessa Holt declared bankrupt amid legal probe. Former design partner faces permanent ban from Architectural Licensing Board. The photo showed her walking out of a courthouse, pale, hollow-eyed, clutching a folder like it was the last thing she owned. I clipped the article and tucked it into a drawer, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that justice doesn't always need an audience. Sometimes it just needs patience. The following weekend, Sophie and I took a trip to the lake where my late husband used to fish. The air smelled of pine and sunlight on water. We spread a blanket, opened a small picnic basket, and for once, didn't talk about work or the past. After lunch, Sophie leaned back on the grass and said, "Mom, I'm proud of you." I laughed. "For what?" "For surviving. For living," she said simply. "You didn't just move on. You built again. Stronger." I smiled at her, my heart swelling with something warm. Because she was right. That was the real revenge. Not the public humiliation. Not the karma that had finally caught up to Vanessa, but the quiet joy of rebuilding a life that didn't depend on anyone else's validation. I had learned that revenge isn't fire, it's water. It flows slowly, calmly, patiently, and it erodes everything false until only truth remains. A year later, I received a letter. A real, handwritten letter from Vanessa. The return address was a small rehabilitation center upstate. Her handwriting was shaky but familiar. "Dear Evelyn, I'm getting help. Not just for the business mess, for everything. For the person I became when I let greed swallow who I was. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know you were right. Taking isn't a strength. Creating is. You created something beautiful, and I destroyed mine. Thank you for not fighting back the way I deserved. You showed me mercy I didn't earn. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to become someone who could." Vanessa, I folded the letter and placed it next to the award on my shelf, because in that moment, I realized the story wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about freedom. Freedom from anger, from betrayal, from the illusion that destroying someone else could ever make you whole. Vanessa taught me what losing feels like, but in the end, I taught her something more powerful, what rebuilding looks like. And that was the sweetest justice of all. The day the auction was finalized, I drove past our old house one last time. The sold sign gleamed like a scar in the afternoon sun. That house had seen every version of me, the young, hopeful bride, the mother who believed in family above all else, and the woman who finally learned that sometimes walking away is the most powerful revenge. Elena had moved out weeks ago. Word spread quickly through town that she was living with her mother again, that she'd been wronged and betrayed. Some neighbors pitied her. Others whispered the truth, that she'd built her little empire on deceit, and it finally crumbled beneath her own greed. But me, I didn't care what they said. I'd stopped living for others' approval a long time ago. I took that final drive slowly, watching the sunlight spill through the trees that lined the road. The air smelled like cut grass and new beginnings. For the first time in years, my chest felt light. No resentment, no guilt, just quiet peace. The kind that comes after you've burned the bridges that were never meant to lead you home. When the check from the property sale hit my account, I didn't splurge. I didn't even celebrate. I donated a portion to the women's shelter downtown. The same one that helped me when I had nowhere else to go after Elena first kicked me out of our shared home. The rest, I used to buy a small cottage by the lake. It wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, white shutters, a garden overrun with weeds that I was slowly reclaiming, one patch at a time. But it was mine. One crisp morning, as I sipped my coffee on the porch, a familiar car pulled up. My son, Mark, stepped out looking thinner, wearier, older somehow. His voice was soft when he spoke. "Mom, can we talk?" I wanted to turn him away, to tell him it was too late, that the years of silence of watching him side with Elena as she humiliated me couldn't be erased with one visit. But something in his eyes stopped me, a kind of regret I hadn't seen before. He sat beside me, staring out at the lake. "I was stupid," he said finally. "I thought keeping peace meant agreeing with her. I thought if I didn't take sides, it would all just fix itself. But I was wrong. I lost you. The silence between us wasn't heavy, it was healing." For once, he wasn't defending anyone. He was just a son, admitting he missed his mother. "I loved her," I said quietly, "more than I should have. And she took everything I built, our home, our life, our trust. But she taught me something important." "What's that?" he asked. "How strong I can be when there's nothing left to lose." Mark nodded slowly, his eyes glistening. "Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" I thought about it, really thought about it. Forgiveness isn't a door, Mark. It's a hallway. You don't walk through it once. You walk it every day. So, maybe, someday. He nodded again, and that was enough. He stayed for dinner. We didn't talk about the past anymore, just the present. The food, the laughter that had gone missing for too long. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Months passed. Seasons changed. I watched my garden bloom again, stubborn flowers pushing through cold soil. I saw myself in them, resilient, reborn. Elena called once. I didn't answer. She texted another time, "I hope you're happy." I typed back, finally, and hit send. That night, I slept with the window open, letting the breeze carry away what little bitterness I had left. She took everything I built, but in the end, she only made space for me to rebuild something stronger, something untouchable, because losing isn't always the end. Sometimes, it's just the beginning of a story where you finally learn what winning truly feels like.
Like, subscribe, and share with your friends who related to it. Comment below for next story.